Hey everybody, welcome to Pit Stops to Podium, the Rev Partners podcast where we talk to execs who have competed and won, selling their companies from high growth to high scale. My name is Brendan Tollison, the co-founder and CEO of Rev Partners. I have with me today Karen Walker for episode 1 of Pit Stops to Podium. And I'm very, very excited to have this conversation with her because, well, Karen is an expert. Karen got her career started at Compaq. Karen got to witness extraordinary growth. And in fact, Compaq was the fastest company to ever reach $1 billion. Karen was employee number 104 and saw it go all the way to 17,000 employees to 15 billion in revenue. So she has a few things to share on this topic. And since then, Karen has been a fantastic resource to multiple companies in the technology space to help them understand how to make this transition from high growth to high scale. So with that, Karen, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Brendan. I'm really honored to be your inaugural guest. And yes, the Compaq experience was quite something, and I learned a lot, both in terms of things to do and things not to do during those 14 years.
Well, we're fortunate to learn more about your experience. But before we get into the big idea for today, let's go through some fun facts about Karen that you may not know. So if you are a Friday Night Lights fan, Karen is from Odessa, Texas. So if you ever have any questions on what happened, feel free to reach out to her. Second, Karen is a snowbird, so she will be up north during the summers and down south during the winters. And then lastly, don't mistake Karen's soft tone. She is tough, but she is a great person and a great friend, and we're thrilled to have her. Karen, one quick thing, as we kind of transition, what's a hobby that you've been able to pick up during this interesting time that we're all experiencing in COVID?
Right. So what am I doing with the time that I'm not on airplanes now?
Yes.
So I did put some thought into this. I think most of us did in last March of 2020. What am I going to do with this time? And I started reading fiction again, historical fiction and a lot of biographical works. I typically only have time for nonfiction, and I say fiction for vacations because if I start a good book, I want to finish it, which might be 2 or 3 a.m., and that's not very conducive to a work week. But I read a lot of European history. I was good in math and science in high school and college, and so that's what my courses were. And there's just a lot I never got exposed to. So I read Peter the Great and Catherine the Great and Louis the 14th and King Charles of Sweden. And I can also answer questions now on European history.
It's great. It's a much better use of your time than what I have done. So I
commend you. Tell.
I probably spent more time watching Hulu shows and Netflix shows on European history than I did actually reading about it. So congratulations.
That counts.
For some of it, yeah. There's a show called Elizabeth, I think, or Catherine the Great. That was fun. Okay, so Karen, let's transition into the big topic for today. And so I think you're a perfect person to have this conversation. And the question is, as you are a fast-growing technology company, the first one of those foundation blocks is to understand your product market fit. But once that's established, what's next? Now what do you do?
Yeah, so product market hurdle is a big one, and congrats to the listeners who have found that. But my experience is that the next hurdle is how do we execute on really delivering to this promise that we made to our customers. And it is the thing where we get in our own way a lot. Certainly, we saw that at Compaq. That amazing story. We did $111 million in our first year. And of course, had we known we were going to do $111 million in our first year, we could have planned for that. But we didn't know. And so it was just like, you just got up every morning and did as much as you could do and went to bed knowing there was an even bigger hill in front of you the next day. And I think that's what happens once you find your product market fit. You need to deliver. You need to be aligned internally. You need to have strategies to make sure that you maintain that alignment. And you need to have teams that work. The way that work is done in the 21st century is primarily through teams. And what it takes to be a good team member, they're not the same skills as being a great individual contributor. And most of us don't come out of the womb knowing how to do that. So I think that is the place where we really have to pay attention. And if I think about RevOps, what a great part of the organization, great examples here around the need for teams because it's so cross-functional. I think in the same ways that we've had the rise of the chief revenue officer, RevOps is, the same, is in many ways following the same path, that we have to have realignment between sales, CS, and marketing in order for the organization to live into its potential.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. And one of the things that you just talked about was that whole concept of misalignment between external and internal. And when we talk a little bit about that, let's unpack that a bit more, because you talked a little bit about good teams. What is a good team in your mind, and how does that drive that alignment concept to ensure that execution is done well?
Yeah. So I like to use a short definition by two guys, Katzenbach and Smith, who wrote a book and an HBR article called The Wisdom of Teams and the Discipline of Teams. And it's these brief components. It's a small group. So if you have 50 people, it's not really a team. You can call them my team, but they can't really function as a team. They're into group dynamics at that point. So small group of people with complementary skills. So if you all do exactly the same thing the same way, great, you can get things done, but you're not working as a team. You have to have a common purpose. What are you trying to do with the team? You have to have a way that you hold yourselves mutually accountable. And by that, I mean, it's not just the boss holding you accountable. The team actually holds itself accountable. So if I don't bring to the party what I said I was going to bring, I don't deliver on time, you were expecting something from me you didn't get, it's okay to ask me about it. And my responsibility in that team is to respond in a non-defensive way, hopefully to get in front of and to own why I did or didn't do what I said I would do. But that it's all it's about reaching this common purpose, this common goal for the team. So I actually like to start with worst teams before I move to best teams. And when I'm giving talks or working with organizations, I'll ask the people in the room to think about, sort of what was the worst team that you were ever on? And then to think about what were the behaviors that made that team so bad. And so maybe the listeners could do that here for just a couple of seconds. What was the absolute worst team you were on? I've never had anyone in thousands and thousands of people I've worked with fail to come up with a bad team. And the kinds of things that I hear, after we've thought about what made it so bad, I ask people, why was it so bad? And I tend to hear things like, we had groupthink. We didn't know how to deal with conflict, and so we just all, sort of passed over the conflict, and we all wouldn't challenge one another. Or we had debate by loudest voice, right? The loudest voice in the room always gets their way. Or we didn't have the skills and resources we need, right? We were chartered poorly in terms of our membership, or the goals and priorities of the people on the team weren't aligned, right? So we come from different departments, perhaps to a team. We had different things we're trying to accomplish. Maybe we had really weak leadership, where we were unable to get the things we needed from the rest of the organization. Or one of my personal favorites is when people say, we started using the flywheel, or some variation on that. And that concept is sort of one we often see in bigger companies, and small companies as they grow sometimes adopt it. So a flywheel is something that gets going, and you sort of put a little bit of energy into it to keep it going. And I think bad teams function that way, right? They get just enough done to keep the wheel going, but not enough for anyone to really work at their potential. And the thing about bad teams is your A players do not want to work on them. They will see that team as a tar pit. And teams can only work at the level of the lowest performing member on the team. And so when your A players feel dragged down or unable, that they have to dumb down in some ways in order to work on that team, they will head for the exits. And that's not a situation that you want to be in. So there are all kinds of signs for bad teams. But if we turn now our attention to good teams, which is the place that we want to be, I also ask people to think about, was the best team that you were on? And often it's a sports team for people. Some of us were really lucky to be on great teams. I was on a high-performing team at Compact, which is the only reason we were able to accomplish the things we did. But for many people, there are sports teams or places where there's just such good camaraderie on the team, and that people's egos were out of the way. You had complementary skills. You respect your teammates, right? You have to have a talented group of people, and you respect their skills. You assume good intent when someone does something you don't understand. You're not cynical about it. You assume that they did it because they had a good reason. And then you get curious and you go figure out what that reason was. You have good conflict resolution skills, and you resolve conflicts in the way that fits the situation rather than just having a hammer and a nail and always resolving conflict the same way. You have explicit responsibilities, but it's okay to color outside the lines to get things done. Nobody thinks you're making a grab for their territory if you do something that needs to get done. You have this clear definition of goals. What is it we're trying to do? How will we know when we get there? This is such a common issue in organizations that people don't know what success looks like. You just keep doing and doing and doing, and you never know when you get to the finish line. And I think it's incumbent on all leaders and managers and organizations to make sure it's clear for individuals and teams where that goal line is. Or maybe there's no accountability structure, right? We know that from an accountability structure standpoint, they're more effective when they are mutual accountability, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of the team definition. But individual accountability, which is awesome. It's part of why we've been successful in the past, right? We were great individual contributors because we hold ourselves accountable and we get things done. That can be a little fragile when you have competing priorities and you can't get everything done. But if you have some mutual accountability structure where other people are helping you hold yourself accountable, then you have a much greater chance of success, and the best teams have that. If I go back to Katzenbach and Smith for a minute, we think about the team performance curve, right? So as a team works together, they build social capital together, they have history, they have worked out, the complementary skills, they've got everything just right. The thing that's a real difference in a good team and a high-performing team is pretty simple, but something we don't think about very often, and that is you have to care about the success of your teammates, care about the success of your colleagues. That does not mean you have to get beer with them. It's great to go get beer with your teammates, right? That camaraderie is priceless and certainly something we are all missing these days. But if you care about the success of your teammates, if you think about it, that's really aligning your best self-interest with their best self-interest. We all do things in our own best self-interest, but if you can align those two things, then there's a lot of power there. And when I mean care about the success of your teammates, if the team is chartered correctly, the team can't be successful unless everyone is successful. And so if you're successful, right, you've maximized for your talents or maximized for your part of the organization, but some other part is lagging and you're not helping with that or supporting that or making the changes that need to happen for that to change, then you don't care about their success. You're not optimizing for the team, you're maximizing for one, and that will not lead to high performance.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. One thing you talked about is the performance of the overall team. It will go to the lowest common denominator, which is the lowest performing member. And so that makes a lot of sense in terms of how you're describing that dynamic. But some of the things that you just outlined in terms of what a high performing team looks like. That's not easy. And so, and it doesn't necessarily come natural to most. And sure, for some it does. But if you were to provide some encouragement or, hey, here's some behaviors for the audience to say, as you think about how to go from good to great, or as you think about how to take your team who may be bad today, but it doesn't mean they can't be great or good. What are some of the proactive steps that you've seen be successful for other companies that our audience can take away with them after this call?
Terrific. Yeah, so I think about good to great is a terrific phrase. I think about it's up and to the right. I think in 2x2 matrices for some reason, and I'm always trying to get us into that upper right-hand quadrant. So I'd say there are 4 or 5 things you could really pay attention to in terms of making a difference in the organization around execution. One is just make sure that you value process as well as content, because it is not enough just to get stuff done. How it gets done is important. And you have to value sort of disciplined process in the organization. And I would say nowhere is that more important than in RevOps, right? You are built on disciplined process. There's also sort of no substitute for making sure that the organization understands the intentions behind whatever the goals are that you've set. And they're making 10,000 decisions every day that hopefully will not involve you because you have other things to be doing. And so the more clarity everyone has about why they're doing what they're doing, the better they'll be able to make sure that there's alignment between their actions and the intention. I think it's important for everyone in the organization to be vigilant and to watch for dumbing down. Right? Nobody gets up in the morning and says, I'm going to work today and we're going to dumb down this team, right? Or dumb down this organization. It might feel like that sometimes. But I think we have to pay attention. So when we start to see dumbing down creeping in, when we start to see organization becoming less effective than it has been, pay attention so that you know, and if the organization's like straining instead of scaling, people are actively disengaged, you're having a lot of unplanned turnover, right? Big warning signs. I think you should also ask for what you want and notice what you get. This is one of my favorite phrases in life. Too often we assume that other people know or should know what we want. Well, they don't. And there's no reason to keep them guessing. So ask for what you want and then notice what you get in response. If you're not getting what you want, then you have choices to make, right, about what you can do about that. And then reward the behaviors that you want in the organization, right? We know that, as I mentioned earlier, people do things aligned with their best self-interest. And so if you're rewarding behaviors, those are going to be the self-interest behaviors that you get. Know that rewards come in many different flavors, right? We often think of compensation, which is great, but also you can increase the recognition that you're giving to employees. You can find ways to show them that you trust them. You can give them more responsibility. Make sure that you reward behaviors that are not just technical skills. As I mentioned earlier, it's not just what you do, it's how you do it. That is so important in a scaling organization because we end up, I think Peter Senge famously said, if you reward fires, you got a lot of firefighters. So good to have people that have the ability to put out fires in the organization, but don't encourage that behavior because then you'll end up with more fires than you needed to have. And then lastly, I think it's important, particularly for the leadership in the organization, to sort of walk the talk. I've certainly had experience where organizations were going through change and the leadership would say, we're going to do X from here forward. And the behavior of the leader was not aligned with what they said. And that will both instill cynicism in the organization, but will not get you the behaviors that you're looking for. So make sure that your own behaviors are really consistent and aligned with your intentions.
Like that. Yes, if I were to summarize, at least what I was hearing was pay attention to the tension. What's rewarded is repeated. And the idea of, integrity and accountability, don't ask somebody to do something that you wouldn't do. And so lead by example as the executive. Well, Karen, I really appreciate these incredible insights based on your experience, both at Compaq and the companies that you've helped along the way. How can our audience get to know you better? What are ways in which they can engage with you to continue to learn these actionable insights as they move forward?
Oh, thanks for asking, Brendan. So a couple of easy ways. My website is just karenwalker.us. And then on any social media platform, I'm at KarenWalkerUS. So I think those are the two easiest ways to reach me.
All right, Karen. Well, thank you so much. We really do appreciate your time. And thanks for sharing your perspective on our podcast.
Thanks, and take good care, Brendan.